17 years after one of the darkest nights in Formula One history, Felipe Massa walked into London's High Court not just for money, but for a chance to rewrite history. The Brazilian driver is suing Formula One's governing body, the sport's commercial rights holder, and its former boss, Bernie Ecclestone, for an astonishing $82 million. But more than the money, he wants to be recognized as the rightful 2008 Formula One world champion. The case, which opened this week, immediately saw the defendants try to have it thrown out, arguing it's too late, too speculative, and unfair to a driver who isn't even in the room. This legal battle is reopening one of F1's ugliest chapters and asks a fundamental question: can you change the past? The scandal known as Crashgate unfolded at the 2008 Singapore Grand Prix. Nelson Piquet Jr., driving for Renault, deliberately crashed his car into the wall. The reason? To cause a safety car period that would help his teammate, Fernando Alonso, win the race. A year later, after being fired from the team, Piquet admitted the crash was intentional, a direct order from his team bosses Flavio Briatore and Pat Symonds. The revelation rocked the sport, and both Briatore and Symonds were banned from Formula One. For Felipe Massa, the consequences of that crash were catastrophic. He was leading the race comfortably when Piquet hit the wall. During the resulting safety car period, Massa pitted and disaster struck. In a chaotic pit stop, he was released with the fuel hose still attached to his car, knocking over a mechanic and forcing him to stop at the end of the pit lane. After the hose was removed, he had to serve a penalty for the incident. He finished the race in 13th place, scoring no points. Meanwhile, Fernando Alonso, who had pitted just before the crash, cycled into the lead and won the race. At the end of the season, Lewis Hamilton won the championship by a single, agonizing point over Massa. If the Singapore race result had been annulled, Massa would have been champion. The legal case was triggered by a bombshell interview given by former F1 Supremo Bernie Ecclestone in 2023. In that interview, Ecclestone claimed that he and then FIA president, the late Max Mosley, knew the crash was deliberate during the 2008 season. He admitted they chose not to investigate it at the time to protect the sport and save it from a huge scandal. This admission was the key that unlocked Massa's legal challenge. It was proof, his lawyers argue, that the sports authorities knew about the manipulation and failed in their duty to act. In a strange twist, Ecclestone, now 95 years old, told the court through his lawyer that he does not remember giving that interview. But for Massa, those words are the reason he is in court today, 17 years after the event. Even more shocking are the new revelations from Massa's own witness statement, which details what he knew and when. He revealed that immediately after the Singapore race in 2008, his Ferrari boss, Jean Todt, called him into his office and said he was sure Piquet had crashed on purpose. At the time, Massa didn't believe him, thinking it was just part of the personal rivalry between Todt and Renault boss Flavio Briatore. Massa says he just wanted to focus on the remaining races to win the championship. His statement also reveals that he personally confronted both Briatore and Piquet Jr. in 2009. In April of that year, he had lunch with Briatore in Dubai and asked him directly if he had ordered the crash. Briatore denied it. Then, in July, while flying to a go-karting event, he asked Piquet Jr. the same question. Piquet also denied it, though Massa says he wasn't convinced by their answers. When the scandal finally broke publicly in August 2009, Massa, who was recovering from a life-threatening crash of his own, immediately called Jean Todt and said he wanted Ferrari to fight the 2008 championship result. However, he was told by Ferrari's lawyers that because the official prize-giving ceremony had already happened, the results could not be changed. Trusting this advice, Massa dropped the matter until Ecclestone's interview brought everything back to the surface. Massa's legal argument is simple. The Singapore Grand Prix was a manipulated race. The authorities knew about it, and they failed to act. His lawyer, Nick DeMarco KC, argues that the case has a real prospect of success, and that if the race result is annulled, Massa would be the rightful 2008 champion. Massa has been clear that his fight is not personal. Everything we are doing is not against Lewis, he stated. I really respect Lewis as a driver, one of the best in the history of Formula One. But what I'm doing is against the result of a manipulated race. We're not talking about a broken engine. We're talking about manipulation that changed the result. His Ferrari boss, Jean Todt, called him into his office and said he was sure Piquet had crashed on purpose. At the time, Massa didn't believe him, thinking it was just part of the personal rivalry between Todt and Renault boss Flavio Briatore.